I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
Making the right choice. Young people gather in Queens to get answers.
What happens when you have peer pressure? What happens when somebody violates your personal space? What happens when somebody try to get you on drugs or you steal?
It's believed to be from Christ's time, what you need to know if you want to see it firsthand. And it's the life of Christ in vivid detail. We'll take a look at a new art exhibit closer to home.
He's an earthly figure in this, whereas in many paintings, he's a little more ethereal.
Well, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Choices. It's a word we hear a lot, especially this time of year during October, which is Respect Life Month.
It is not just isolated to life issues, though. It is also something young people deal with, making all kinds of choices. Some of them determine what kind of a person they'll turn into as they grow up.
Well, the Brooklyn Diocese is doing its part with an extensive young adult youth ministry, and local parishes are also helping young people in their communities. That's what we found out when we visited Sacred Heart Parish in Cambria Heights, Queens.
Hush! Somebody is calling my name. And it sounds like Jesus is calling my name.
To be a living church is to participate. And so therefore, I want them to know that there's rules and regulations, not from their parents, not from me, but from God. And how do we live in that, in a world that's changing?
Hallelujah.
When I get to one of these youth gatherings, it's to have them to participate in it. Not to sit there and listen to me, but to act it out. And you've seen that with the life source scenarios I created. And the reason why I created that is to get them influence in it. What happens when you have peer pressure? What happens when somebody violates your personal space? What happens when somebody try to get you on drugs or you steal? What goes on and how to deal with that and what's the correct way? And then my conclusion is, what would Jesus do?
This program started about 4 years ago. A few parents and I in Sacred Heart. We were away at a retreat, and we just started talking, and it just came about that we all had this inspiration to want to serve in the youth.
And it turned out that a couple of the people on the same retreat, they too had the same feeling or motivation to do more for the youth. And they were all ready to get started.
We wanted to find a way how we could draw our kids closer to the Lord in order for them to come to know Him in a better way, in order for them that when they're making their choices, they will have a better guidance to make their choices in life.
We address core Catholic principles or beliefs, for example, confession, Mary, the Eucharist, as well as other general issues that they face in regular life, everyday life.
Today, we're learning that despite what situations are out there, there is always an alternate choice, that is God. There's a choice that will lead us down the right path. There's always an option to do right or to do wrong. And today, we're really highlighting what the effects of doing wrong are and the fact that we could have had a different choice. Regardless of the situation, there's always a better choice. You never have to go with the crowd.
I find that a lot of them have questions about their faith, or about certain parts of the Mass, or about the Eucharist, or about Mary. And sometimes they're afraid to ask the question. So here at the youth rally, the way we do the youth rally, we try to answer questions that we know that the kids might be asking, because like I said, I'm a mom and my kids support a Sacred Heart, and they ask me questions.
The greatest challenge is to not fluff over a topic, but to be real with a topic. They're dealing with issues that I didn't have to deal with when I was a kid. They're dealing with sexuality issues. They're dealing with peer pressure. They're dealing with things that, we dealt with in our generations, not as hard as they dealing with it. Think about this. They can push a button and have 1 million people in their room at one time through the internet. And so I want to come to them direct, and I want them to know that, you know what, even though that you're dealing with it, there's always a right choice to make, and that choice is Jesus Christ.
When I'm having a rough time, like you said, we're all swimming in the sea of life, and sometimes we feel like we're drowning. So when I'm drowning, I know that I can turn to my faith, and that's a very large support for me. Every day you do the same thing, and every day the same things are overwhelming. But to know that you have a Catholic upbringing, you have that base you can turn back to, you can go home, you can pray, you can come to events like this, a rally, and get rejuvenated is really helpful, and it really gets you through the roughest parts.
A lot of times young Catholic people are not challenged to deepen their faith. But on the other hand, they get a chance to see other young Catholic people, not necessarily from their own parish, and they see that people are lively, enthusiastic, they have a chance to meet each other, they have a chance to sing because we have choirs here, they have a chance to see dance, they have a chance to see their talent, and it tends to encourage them to want to participate more in their prospective parishes.
The community of Sacred Heart Parish in Cambria Heights working to teach their young people about life and faith. So encouraging to see that.
I love that. That's such an awkward time, and you're getting bullied, you're getting, propositioned, you're getting, pulled in a million different directions probably, as these young kids are. He was saying it. These are the issues the kids are facing. And what are you going to do? And to know that you can always choose a right path that makes you feel as though you have a friend that can guide you in the right direction, and God and Jesus and the church and your peers that are, in your group is so critical, because you just don't feel like you have to fall in with the bad crowd. Right.
There's always that choice, which is a better choice to be able to make. So it's very encouraging that this is there. And, we hear the term a lot of times, the children are our future. In so many ways, the children are our present. So it's good that they recognize that, and they're trying to get them to make better decisions in the here and now.
Yeah, I like it. There's much more Current straight ahead coming up as the World Series gets underway. Some bishops are actually in on the act. We'll have that and the rest of the day's headlines when Currents returns. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, a closer look at some art that's close to home.
But first, let's take a look at the day's headlines. A spokesman for a Catholic diocese in the Philippines says a kidnapped priest there is alive. After more than 2 weeks, the diocese made contact with the people holding him captive. The spokesman says negotiations have been begun for the priest's release. Meanwhile, the government there has offered more than $4,000 for information about the captors. The Vatican announced yesterday that Pope Benedict will visit the Shroud of Turin when it goes on display next April. But if you want to see it for yourself, there is a new website with all you need to know. We get more from Rome Reports.
The website dedicated to the Shroud of Turin just got a makeover. Sindone.org has been revamped to offer visitors more information on the Shroud and details on pilgrimages to Turin to see the Shroud next year. The site features everything you need to know if you're traveling to Turin for the exhibit, like dates and times, videos and pictures, and a bit of history on the Shroud. The Holy Shroud, or the Shroud of Turin, is one of the most studied objects in the world. It's a linen cloth that bears the marks that match those of Jesus' Passion, and for centuries it's been venerated as the authentic shroud used to cover Jesus after his crucifixion. The Holy Shroud will be on display from April 10th through May 23rd of 2010 at the Cathedral of Turin in northern Italy. The Pope is also expected to visit the Shroud, as are thousands of pilgrims who for the first time will see the Shroud after treatment for its conservation was made to it in 2002.
And we will have more on the life of Christ later in the show. We'll take a close look at an exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum.
Well, the Vatican continues to negotiate with the breakaway fundamentalist Society of St. Pius X. Now we've learned that one of the most controversial figures in that group has been fined by the German government for his statements about the Holocaust. Excommunicated British Bishop Richard Williamson made headlines earlier in the year for saying that 6 million Jews were not deliberately gassed during World War II. This week, the German government fined Williamson 120,000 euros. That's nearly 180,000 US dollars for those remarks. It is against German law to publicly deny the Holocaust. Well, a group of U.S. and Canadian Anglican priests has responded to the Vatican's recent invitation to disaffected Anglicans. The group released a statement this week saying that while the move highlights the amazing degree of overlap between the two, the statement also says that to some Anglicans who disagree with recent developments in their church, The invitation may make some sense. Meantime, in Canada, an Anglican bishop recently met with Catholic bishops to discuss church unity. We get details on that meeting from H2O News.
The same day the Vatican announced a new constitution for Anglicans to come into full communion with Rome, Archbishop Fred Hiltz, the Anglican primate of Canada, joined the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops for the second day of their annual plenary assembly. He reminded the Catholic bishops that much progress has been made toward full unity in recent years, recalling the various joint declarations issued by the Roman Catholic and Anglican churches. He also recalled Pope John Paul II's words to then Archbishop of Canterbury, Robert Runcie, "Our affective unity will lead us to effective unity." Archbishop Hiltz took the opportunity to invite representatives of the Canadian bishops to attend the 2010 Synod of the Anglican Church in Canada. He said he hopes one day there will be joint meetings between Anglican and Catholic bishops. In an interview with Salt and Light Television, the Archbishop spoke about the new constitution and Catholic-Anglican relations.
I think there's huge potential for us to grow together in terms of our sharing what our experiences are in Episcopal ministry. What are the delights? What are the challenges? What are our two churches doing as we try to be responsive to challenges and opportunities in an increasingly secularized society, wrestling together with difficult questions before the church and before the world. And I'm convinced that you cannot build trust. You can't grow relationships unless you meet and sit and talk and pray face to face with one another.
Well, speaking of face-to-face meetings, the World Series gets underway tonight between the Yankees and Phillies at Yankee Stadium. There is a friendly wager going on in the meantime between Catholic leaders in those two cities. New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan says if the Phillies win the series, he'll send a dozen bagels to Philly. Cardinal Justin Regali, the Archbishop of Philadelphia, says if the Yankees win, he'll send a box of tasty cakes to New York. The two men are longtime friends.
I wonder where they're going to get the bagels.
Right. That's a good question. I think if Archbishop Dolan ends up sending bagels to Philly, at least they'll have the cream cheese for him.
Oh, so. Very good. All right, stay tuned. There's more Current straight ahead.
Coming up, could they have been saved? Samoans are asking questions after last month's tsunami.
Since last month's earthquake and tsunami on American Samoa, Catholic relief agencies have been hard at work trying to help the island recover.
Catholic Charities USA sent a $10,000 grant to the diocese there, and its disaster response team is on American Samoa now, providing basic needs for the island population, 20% of which is Catholic.
But even as residents and relief workers pick up the pieces, they're also asking if the 34 deaths as a result of the tsunami could have been avoided. We get more on that from CNN's Drew Griffin.
On a Saturday morning, villagers in Leone, American Samoa, hold funeral mass for the 33rd victim of this tsunami. Outside the packed church, the village remains in ruins. A boy is still missing here. One village over, flowers mark the spot where two more died.
They found the mom, and now they're still looking for the daughter now.
Nobody sent out a warning?
No warning at all. And
That's why people died.
That's why people die.
We decided to investigate why the United States government has sent millions and millions of dollars to this island to prepare for an emergency that they weren't prepared for. Records show U.S. taxpayers have shelled out nearly $13 million in disaster preparedness grants since 2003, and yet no sirens, no warning system, and 34 dead. And to our surprise, the highest-ranking official here on this American territory, an island of 68,000 people, the governor, says there was a study, but never a plan for a warning system.
I was trying to get verification of what happened to that application, but I wasn't able to get the definite information.
There's every reason to believe tsunami warning sirens should have been blaring at the time when people, unbeknownst to them, were sitting in the line of fire. True?
True.
This man says he has all the information the governor says he lacks. His name is Bertie Alailima, and he worked for the governor as Samoa's Homeland Security Advisor. He was fired 2 years ago in 2007. Today, Bertie lives with his son in the U.S., and he insists he was testing and preparing the very warning system the governor seems to know little about.
And the siren system that was being planned for Leone was going to be right up here to be able
30 or more towers, he says, 30 or more sirens. Hit a button, and a tsunami warning siren blasts across the island.
What you're saying is that the tsunami warning system should have been in place.
Yes.
So what happened? Bertie says some of the money from U.S. taxpayers for Samoan Homeland Security went missing. He says the government of Samoa was using that money to pay salaries of what he calls extra personnel.
You're speaking like a bureaucrat.
Well,
when you say
keep in mind
personnel put on the payroll, me, being from Chicago, think I'm rewarding my cronies with a job.
Well, in some ways, yes.
Not just new jobs. U.S. Homeland Security investigators reported emergency money instead was being spent on fancy extras like plasma TVs, expensive leather furniture, and government SUVs not used for emergencies. So the U.S. stopped the free money train. It froze the Samoan preparedness accounts.
I'm not going to fault them for freezing the funds. I mean, these are federal funds. They have oversight responsibility, and they saw fit to freeze the funds.
Federal negotiators wanted the Samoans to pay back those misused funds before unfreezing the rest of the money.
All I'm saying to you is that we've tried to work with them, and we've tried to get some partial releases, but so far it hasn't happened.
A federal official in position to know calls the governor's statement nonsense. American Samoa was asked to pay back just some of the money it misused. The government here and the governor refused, and the tsunami siren system was stopped. When we asked the governor's office about that, a spokesman declined to comment. 34 dead, 13 million in U.S. taxpayer aid, and now CNN has learned the FBI is looking at why Samoa's tsunami warning systems were never built. In fact, since 1995, the U.S. has sent $2 billion to American Samoa. That, while the U.S. officially describes American Samoa as, quote, high risk for receiving federal funds.
Well, CNN's Drew Griffin there on American Samoa. And for more on the situation there, you can visit our blog. It's called Riding the Wave. Just go to currentsny.net and click on the icon there on the right-hand side of the screen that says Riding the Wave. Just a tough situation there. And, you know, it's the question of where in the world did all that money go? No one seems to have the answers, and if they do, they're not saying it.
Well, government corruption is nothing new, and whatever is happening over there or did happen, who knows? Obviously, it's, you know, kind of a mess right now. But the fact of the matter is these people died. Had the system been in place, they probably wouldn't have, because hopefully it would have worked. You know, this is the kind of a thing where it's, you want it to happen and to be in place, and when it's not, because maybe somebody's too greedy perhaps, that's kind of what the piece was sort of pointing to, you know, people can die.
Yeah, we went through kind of the similar situation in Georgia with tornado warning sirens as well. So kind of a little bit of that going on there. So it's not just there, but you can find more information on our blog about it.
Stay tuned, there's more currents ahead.
Coming up, we'll take a closer look at some powerful paintings.
I usually am kind of turned off by religious art. You know, I just get kind of bored with it, but this was really different.
Yesterday, we gave you a peek at a new art exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum.
It is a collection of the work of 19th century watercolor artist James Tissot, which shows in vivid detail the life of Christ.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, right.
Well, tonight we want to give you a closer look at this, what is really a fascinating exhibit.
Yeah, I got a chance to go there last week and hear what the visitors to the Brooklyn Museum had to say about it, about James Tissot's Life of Christ. Have a look. Not everyone would sacrifice social standing and a lucrative career to pursue a vision of Christ, but that's exactly what James Tissot did.
Art and religion has a very strong background. Europe is dominated by it, and I think we're more balanced in North America, but it has a large role.
The Brooklyn Art Museum dug into its own archives to unearth more than 100 of Tissot's watercolors.
Lucky me, I have a daughter who lives in Brooklyn, and so I couldn't wait to come and see it, and it was an extra special treat that this exhibit is here today.
There were over 300 paintings that he did, so I thought I would find one of every story I would know in the Bible.
I think they're really detailed and beautiful. I'm surprised at how much I like them.
The small size is quite dramatic. I expected them to be larger, and they're really an impact in this small size.
Some of the details in Tissot's watercolors are so fine that it can be difficult to decipher exactly what they're saying. And that's why the Brooklyn Museum was smart. They provided some magnifying glasses so that you can see in pictures like this one, Jesus Among the Doctors, exactly what's going on.
I'm a Christian, and I try to get to know the Bible as much as possible, and I find it helps illuminate the scriptures to look at how people pictured them rather than just reading the words.
I usually am kind of turned off by religious art. You know, I just get kind of bored with it, but this was really different than other things that I've seen before.
He's an earthly figure in this, whereas in many paintings, he's a little more ethereal.
It's surprising when you look at the figures in the paintings and see how much they just look like people, as opposed to looking so mythical. And even a person like myself, I'm not religious. I can suspend my disbelief when looking at something like this and believe that maybe some of the more mythical aspects did happen.
I've always been interested in religious history, and the paintings are a magnificent illustration of the whole story.
I think that religious art is a huge part of art history, and to me, I'd much rather see paintings like this, which are a little bit more contemporary than what you'd normally see.
Christianity has had an influence on the world, and to represent that in a museum, I think, is an appropriate thing. Just as there is a floor for Muslim art further up in the building, I think it's appropriate for Christian art also to be displayed.
Whether it's the subject matter or the artistic mastery, Tissot's work seems to stretch beyond the canvas.
It's a wonderful piece of work. I can't believe the amount of detail he gets in these small pictures. He must have had an amazingly steady hand.
I really did enjoy it there, and everyone was, you know, like I said, they're not that big. They're about the size of this piece of paper.
You weren't kidding about that.
Yeah, no, they're not. But you know, when you really look at them, when you use the magnifying glass, you can just see how careful he was with everything.
It's amazing. Like I didn't realize it. You know, because when you said that yesterday, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, that's
they're
good.
Small.
Then you get the close-up shot, and it's amazing how detailed they really are.
I really liked what people had to say about it, the ones I talked to, though, because they were all, you know, they were saying that the pictures made the biblical stories relatable, but they're not pedestrian in any way. You know, I mean, these aren't just any old pictures, but they made the people come to life. They made Jesus come to life.
Yeah, and the realism of these paintings and what Tissot was able to do in watercolors in that detail, and just the style of it, so realistic, but so you're able to connect with it. And I really like that the girl who said she wasn't religious and was able to suspend her disbelief. I thought that really brought it home.
Yes, absolutely. I was touched by that as well. Well, that is all for this edition of Currents. Oh, by the way, I will put a little blog entry up on that.
Yes.
I keep saying things backwards. Coming up tomorrow, how scary is Halloween? We'll look at whether it's harmless fun or something dangerous.
It should be fun, but until then, remember you can always catch us online. Just head over to currentsny.net. There you can see clips of the show. Check out our blog, Writing the Way. Francesca will post there. I will post there today, so it'll be all updated. And you can also meet the people who make it happen as well.
You can also follow us on Facebook. The address is facebook.com/currentsny. Always updating that with the latest on what we're up to. You can become a fan and also check out the videos from previous shows of Currents that you may have missed.
Absolutely.
So for all of us here at Currents, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.